I'm honoured to be joined by everyone's favourite SEO consultant, Duncan Reid, and he's here to talk about local SEO strategies for small and medium-sized businesses. Duncan, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, it's great to be here. Thanks for the invite. It's great to kick off 2024. 2024, where did that happen? It seems like it was only yesterday when I was a slightly less grey-haired geek, but I was anxiously waiting for the stroke of midnight at the year 2000 to see if the world exploded around me. It didn't, and I'm still here. The internet is still here. So, it's going to be a fascinating year, hopefully.
And you're now sat here talking to me. So really, you've gone from potential dystopia to utopia.
Absolutely, yeah.
And how many grey hairs do you feel that you accumulated in 2023 if you had to put an exact number on it?
Far too many, but each time I go to the barbers, I say, just cut out the grey ones. And so far, he seems to be succeeding.
He looks like he's doing a good job, yeah.
Distance does well, but nobody told the beard. I'm considering going back to my lockdown plumage, where in the midst of homeschooling, without telling my daughter, I once disappeared to the bathroom with an Amazon delivery and came out with my beard dyed blue. She was horrified.
Wow.
Job done.
I'll tell you what, I wish I'd have seen that. I mean, you're now making me think, should I dye my beard blue? Is this some sort of trend that we're going to see in 2024? I'm not sure if it'll catch on, but...
It's surprisingly difficult. Everything got blue. The sink, the towels, the floor, you name it, except the beard. It's pretty much, it washed out very, very quickly, leaving it with just a very faint purplish tinge. But that was still enough to embarrass her. So, as a dad, I count that as a win.
If you're going to make your mark, you might as well do it properly, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
So Duncan and I know each other from a local networking group, and given that this podcast is marketing oriented, helps if I can say it, he was a no-brainer for it, and I'm really excited to hear what he has to say. So yeah, Duncan, let's jump right in. So can you start by giving us a quick background on your career to date? I know you were on the KGB's radar at one point, so maybe you can tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah, certainly. Well, my career has always been involved with technology since the dim and distant days back in the 1980s. Oh, that's horrendous. I've been involved with technology for, best part of 40 years, and that makes me sound and feel really, really old. In fact, one former member of our networking group once said to me, "You know an awful lot of stuff about technology for an old bloke." Suffice it to say, they never found the body. So I've been involved in technology really since, for a number of years before we even had commercially available internet in the UK. So that sort of, sets the story. But my background is all electronic engineering, radio engineering, radar engineering, electromagnetics, military optics, all that sort of stuff. And involved with that, you do an awful lot of computing. And you're thinking, what on earth has this got to do with marketing? Well, I discovered very early on that I could actually rewrite my lecture notes when I was a student and sell them to magazines who would publish them. So great. I've always loved writing, and I got to see my name in print, and they paid me. How good is that? So that always existed as a slight sideline. Then I worked on various engineering projects. I worked on cellular phones. It wasn't 5G back then, it was more like 1.5G. I worked on a consultancy project for London Underground. I've worked on safety critical systems in aviation, all sorts of fascinating things, but I got bored quite quickly. So over a number of years, I drifted into something that I then bought a department out and ran it myself for a good number of years. But we were doing some work for the European Union, as it was called back then, or it might be even the EC, the European Community. Either way, we were getting paid by Brussels, and we were doing work in Russia. Now, fascinating place. Not going to be going back there anytime soon, I don't think. But I said then, and I say now, lovely people, lousy leaders, and I think that's as true today as it was back then. But this was just when they were coming out, really, of the communist era. And we ended up, we were using military imaging equipment that's sensitive to heat. The sort of things that you might have seen on police programs. We were using the heat sensitive thermal imaging cameras in police aircraft. And we were using that sort of technology to look at the underground heating pipelines in St. Petersburg. because it's all district heating schemes. So when the mayor says your heating goes on, the heating goes on. When the mayor says the heating goes off, your heating goes off. And if there's a breakdown in between, you freeze. You haven't your own heating. Your only way of controlling it is to open a window if it gets too hot. So we were trying to give them information as to where these systems were leaking, and they were leaking like a sieve, because for the first time they were really having to think in terms of the pound, shillings and pence when it came to actually running these systems. And we were going to take our system over there. I had to negotiate with the MOD to take it over, and we eventually got permission from various government departments. But then the Russians said, actually, we want it a month in advance so we can do some safety checks on it. I thought, nah, I don't fancy getting it back in lots of little pieces. So we ended up hiring some Russian equipment, and that Russian equipment was mounted in a Russian military helicopter. It had a great big red star painted on the side. Of course, we were told, oh no, this is now a private helicopter. It's not military. We just haven't had time to paint it out yet. And you can tell the pilots are not military because they're wearing jeans and baseball caps. Yeah, there's no such thing as non-military aircraft in Russia at that time. Obviously, the local base commander was getting a brown envelope from the Russian company that we were partnered with. So we've got this rather large Russian military helicopter, the very ancient thermal imaging gear in the back of it, which they actually still poured in liquid nitrogen. And I said, well, I've got to see this, because I was over there as the project engineer. I said, Brussels isn't going to pay unless I see this, which wasn't true. But I wanted to, I wanted to try a flight in a Russian helicopter. So they said, okay, but you can't come to the airbase. So they landed on a bit of waste ground by the side of a dual carriageway, and our driver just pulled up. I hopped on, and off we went, flying at rooftop height through St. Petersburg. The local newspaper was full of all sorts of interesting headlines about gangsters rushing off to a helicopter and all sorts of things. But we did a few hours work, and then they dropped me off. So I had a good look at their equipment. I saw how they were doing it. Lots of lovely stuff to put in my report, and I wanted to take some photos. So I'm not daft. I asked them. I wasn't James Bond. I wasn't taking surreptitious photos. So I asked them. They even took a window out so I could stick my head outside and get better photographs. And that was all fine until the next day when we went back to their offices. Now, their offices were like something you would see out in a James Bond film. Long, echoing corridors, only 1 in 4 lights working, faint smell of cabbage in the background. Very stereotypical and very true. Yeah. And right next to their office, because this company was effectively what would have been the Ordnance Survey in this country. They were sort of responsible for lots of mapping and survey operations. And they pointed out that the next office to that was a KGB office, although it had a big lead seal on the door and it was all locked up. And so obviously they're very much in the government throw of things. And all of a sudden they'd become much more serious. So I've got a guy in a 1950s style 3-piece suit, sat behind his desk, banging the table, which is a fairly standard Russian way of doing business, banging the table, wagging his finger. And what had obviously happened is that somebody on that helicopter was reporting to a different branch of state security, and they didn't like the fact that photographs had been taken. Now, that's all fine. The problem arises in that in Russian, there is a word that's used to describe film, be that 35mm film, video film, whatever. And to my Western ears, that sounded very much like plonker.
Yeah.
So I've got a colleague who joined me. He'd come over on the flight the night before, and he's notorious for not taking anything too seriously, particularly officialdom. So his shoulders are starting to go. He's chuckling. I'm starting to chuckle. This very confused Russian, who's not used to having his authority questioned, is wagging his finger at me saying plonker with every other word. Our interpreter has gone white as a sheet. And this went on for a few minutes. I said, look, would you like the film? And he went, yes, fine. Yeah, great. Was that all it took? I actually got the film back on my next visit. They developed it, censored a couple. This was in the days of 35mm film, so they chopped a couple of negatives out, and I got it back. But yeah, that is how I have been called a plonker by the KGB, amongst others.
Oh my God. Well, we'll come on to talk about how SMEs can avoid being clunkers when it comes to SEO. I just thought about that as you were saying. It's pretty terrible. I mean, how do you go from that banal existence to then working in SEO now? I mean, where did it all go right, essentially?
Yeah, yeah, that was good fun to do. But it was quite good that I was working for a large international consultancy at that time, so I didn't have to worry about the cash flow and expenses and all the all the awkward stuff. But not long after that, I bought that department out and ran that for about another 10 years, and then the marketplace changed, and there wasn't the call for that sort of survey to the same degree. But of course, all this stuff is very much tied in with IT skills. So to me, IT is just another part of electronics. So you need to have the IT skills. And I found that lots of other people, where my office was back at that time in Southport, was all the other local businesses said, "Oh, we've just got a problem. Can you come and fix it?" Yeah, of course, that's fine. No problem. If they're going to pay me, I'll do it. And slowly over time, an IT support business grew out of that demand. And then time rolls on, as it does, and I didn't find it particularly fulfilling. It was a bit boring. So I'd started doing more writing, more sort of dabbling a little bit in SEO. And then there was a Microsoft server change. They brought out a new operating system. So I was faced with learning this and getting in some extra certifications and all that, all very doable. But I thought, you know what, don't really like this. Fed up of crawling around on my hands and knees underneath people's desks in amongst the crumbs looking for the network cable that they've stood on. So I pretty much sold most of that off. I just kept a couple of clients that I liked working with, because then I started getting into the SEO and I thought, oh yeah, I can stay at my desk eating coffee and donuts. What's not to like about that? And it actually pulled together lots of skills that I already had, because there's an awful lot of SEOs out there who are very good at one aspect of SEO, and I'm a little bit of a unicorn, a little bit unusual. I'm quite unusual in that I do a lot of things differently than a lot of other SEO merchants who are at the more cowboy end of the scale, shall we say. But writing had always been part of what I did. It was always a side hustle. I would do all my engineering stuff, but then I'd be arguing with editors as to whether they'd accept my copy or they wanted to hack it around to the nth degree. So there was always some technical journalism going on. There was always some articles being written, not huge amounts, but enough just to keep that creative side going. I do quite a bit of photography as well. I do, and I'm interested in the psychology of business, how businesses work, how marketing works. So that slowly over a number of years morphed into quite a combined SEO ability package. So I can do the photographs if people need the content. I don't often, because I've got some really, really good photographers that I work with who are, I hate to say it, better than me, even though I do sell some of my stuff occasionally. I've also got writers if I need them, although I usually do that myself. But also it's about the technical side. So it's still keeping my technical geek side itch scratched, because you can't make a website work if you don't know the technicalities of how websites and the internet as a whole work. But then you've got to also then marry that to the much softer skills of people. People buy from people, and if that message isn't getting over, if any link in that chain is broken, then it's not going to work, because it's about making sure that the website works so that it attracts visitors. And if it attracts visitors, is the message right? If the message isn't right, well, those visitors aren't going to go on to do whatever it is you want them to do, whether that's sign up for a newsletter, hit buy now, or attend a webinar, come to your bricks and mortar shop, whatever it happens to be. They're not going to do it if that message is broken. Yeah. So it's a great big chain that covers lots of different disciplines. And if any one of those links in the chain is broken, hey, it don't work. So I'm quite unusual in that a lot of SEO agencies out there, they target themselves on creating so many backlinks, or hitting this metric, hitting that metric, hitting the other. Oh, well, that's fabulous! You get lots of lovely graphs that you can show the end client. Well, what use is that? It's absolutely no use whatsoever. So, as I say to people, that if you want that sort of agency, go elsewhere. It's not for me. But if you want to work with somebody that will sit you down with a cup of coffee and an Eccles cake and say, tell me what's going on in the business. What are the problems that you're facing? What's the message we want to get over? What are the problems we're trying to overcome? Then that's much more my bag. And as I say, I don't, yes, I do care what the metrics are because they're a tool for me, but they're for me. And they may be of interest to some clients. Some clients love them, some people hate them. I say the only test of any marketing, whether it's online SEO, offline, walking around with a sandwich board, sticking leaflets under the windscreen wipers of cars in Waitrose, whatever it happens to be, the only test of any marketing is, does it work? Are you getting the phone calls? Are you getting the money in your till? Are you getting a smile from your bank manager, or nasty phone calls? And that's the test of marketing, isn't it?
I love that. I mean, there's more than one way to skin a cat, as you've alluded to throughout your answer there, and we will come on to talk about the different disciplines within SEO. But I love what you say there, in that it's not just one aspect that you focus on. A lot of people are big on the technical side, but then it's like, yeah, but the on-page stuff is crap, or there's no backlinks to this website. It's like you fixed one part of it. It's a little bit like going outside with a shirt and trousers on the front end and then you're naked at the back. It's a little bit like, well, I think that's going to be mildly embarrassing for most people, you would have thought.
But so many of us conducted business that way during lockdown. In the days of Zoom, everybody looked great from the waist up, shirt, tie. But what you didn't see was the old pair of football shorts that they were wearing.
That's a great example. I've got to ask, just as an aside, have you ever gone out with a sandwich board on just to advertise a business? I'm assuming that's not a part of your varied skill set, but I just have to.
Not yet. But there's always a first time. I have gone out leafleting. I remember driving around industrial estate after industrial estate when I was starting doing IT support with a box of 50,000 flyers that I'd got printed quite cheaply off eBay, and sticking them through every door that I could possibly find. It didn't get much, but it got just enough, and I even sent them out in with some of the local free paper, local newspapers. Ooh, do you remember those? What a concept. And that was a bit of a gamble on my part because I didn't have much cash around at the time. So I did a leaflet drop via the local rag, and it was around Birkdale, Southport, all around that bit on the northwest coast. And I thought, oh, this has gone horribly wrong. This means I've got even less money now because I just spent on the leaflet, spent on the distribution. But what I found was that I got a steady groundswell of that because enough people had seen the leaflet, gone, oh, that's handy, and they stuck it to the fridge or whatever. So back then, I used to get a lot of business whenever there was a thunderstorm, because around the area that's called Formby, which is a wooded, marshy area up to on the coast to the north of Liverpool, that used to get hit by lightning whenever there was a storm. And back then, when people had the old-fashioned screechy modems that made a nice noise when you dialed up, that voltage would come rattling down the telephone line, and it would actually blow the relay inside the modem. So I just used to have a stock of modem cards, and after there's a thunderstorm, I knew the phone was going to be ringing, and I'd go out and replace loads of modems. That was nice when you did it. So that's a proof that marketing can work, but it's not always instantaneous, and that's something I like to come back to, because that's the same regardless of whether you're doing it online or offline. And people, because it's people that are controlling the money, people need to see your brand, your business, your product, your showroom, whatever it may be, quite a number of times, really, usually before they're actually ready to buy. It's just about being in front of them, or at least in their mind. So close enough so they can go, oh yeah, there's that place. Oh, where is it?
Yeah.
But then there's enough that they can hopefully search, and then online you're going to be found, and that's when they then come through your showroom door looking for a replacement widget.
I don't know the exact number, but I heard that it's between half a dozen and a dozen interactions that you'll have with a business before you buy from it. I mean, I feel like that's about right. It's definitely not one or two in most cases. So it just shows the importance of having that collateral on your website, and not only that, obviously nailing the message, and having a bit of opportunism in there as well, as you alluded to with your example from Formby, which I love, by the way, because I know Formby well, and I know that the weather is quite temperamental at times there, to say the least. So we've touched on this quite a lot already, but I just want to know, what is local SEO from your perspective, and why is it so important for improving a business's standing within its community?
Yeah. Okay, well, first of all, what is SEO? And that's something that a lot of people get confused with. People often think that SEO is when you pay Google and people click on your advert. No, that's paid search, that's pay-per-click. And it has its place, but in my mind, it's akin to standing outside in the pouring rain, ripping up £20 notes. Or if you've got a bigger budget, ripping up £50 notes. Because your spend goes very quickly and then you've got nothing to show for it.
Yeah.
You know, it works for certain things, but you've got to really, really measure it really well. But that is not SEO. That is paid advertising, and you pay per click. SEO is about being more visible online. And SEO, people think it's all about search. After all, it stands for search engine optimization. But really, it's so much more than that. Because when somebody is looking for a website, yes, they might go to a search engine, in which case you're looking for conventional SEO so that your website appears well in those organic search listings. So the bit below the map, the bit below all the adverts, where it's actually organic search. And a lot of people regard that as being far more trustworthy, because people haven't paid a fee just to appear right at the top as a sponsored pay-per-click ad. So SEO is about getting a website to be more visible and more attractive to the search engines. By that, we really mean Google. You know, they've got massive market share, but all the other search engines that you might come across, like Bing or DuckDuckGo or any of the others, they all work in very much the same sort of fashion. So people think it's about getting that search engine place, so that you're, you know, if you're at the top spot on page one, yeah, you're going to be inundated and you're going to be a millionaire by Tuesday. Well, it doesn't quite work that way. For one thing, you might be appearing for the wrong search terms. You might get lots of useless traffic. You might get lots of tire kickers, which means that you've got to hire a call center full of employees just to manage the inquiries, but actually none of them are good quality inquiries and they don't actually turn into work.
Yeah.
But that's all thinking in terms of the search engine listings. But SEO is also about being online in front of the right people at the right time. So you can be successful at SEO without even appearing on the search rankings. Ooh, that sounds a bit odd. But there's so many other places that your website can appear online. It might appear in forum discussions. It might be that it's got some really, really useful information on it. So whenever anybody online is talking about where to find a carburetor for a 1979 Ford Capri, everybody says, this is the site to use. And if that's your site, then you're laughing, because you're then going to get direct traffic that's not touched the search engine, but it's direct, highly relevant traffic that is looking for what you have to sell. And that's the important thing. You know, what is the intent of the consumer? Are they, you know, just looking for information? Are they competitors looking to see what you're up to? Are they looking for support, or are they looking to buy? And all of these different things need a different response from your website. And that's SEO in a whole. And local SEO is that, but local. Because if you've got a baker not far from me, let's say you've got a baker up on South Road, which is 10 minutes walk away from here, and you make the best bagels in Liverpool, that's great. But nobody's going to come from Birmingham to buy those, are they? So what is the point of you doing SEO work that's going to make your listing stand out when people are searching for bagels near me? If they're in Southampton, Walsall or Hull, then they're going to be stale by the time they get them, regardless of how well you send them out.
Yeah.
So no, what you're going to be more interested in is local SEO. You want people from the surrounding 5 or 10 miles to know that you're there. So when they're doing shopping in this area, they go, oh yeah, let's pop into Neil's bagel shop because he's got the best, you know, the best cream cheese bagels in town. And that's local SEO in a nutshell.
Mm.
And there's an analogy that I know you've heard before, but the rest of your unfortunate subscribers haven't. So I'll say having a website is just like having a nice new shop or showroom, and you've opened it down a dark little alleyway in the middle of your local city, in the middle of the business district. It should be fantastic because there's loads of people in that square mile, but you're down a little dark alleyway because you couldn't afford a high street rent. And it doesn't matter how much money you've spent on the showroom. It looks fantastic. The products are great. And you're stood there behind the till waiting for that door to jingle and somebody to come in and put lots of money in your till. And it doesn't happen because nobody knows you're there. And the online world is very, very similar. If nobody knows that you're there down that little dark alleyway, then they're not going to come in through your virtual doorway. And that's where SEO comes in, because SEO is the online equivalent of some poor apprentice putting on the sandwich board and walking up and down the high street saying, over here, over here. At which point you start getting the people in through the door, and some of which will buy. You've always got a conversion rate. Not everybody on your site will buy. Not everybody into your shop will buy. Not everybody into your showroom will even pick up a leaflet. But some will, and it's a percentage. And there's things you can do to improve that percentage, but let's just assume for the time being that that's a fixed percentage. Let's say 5% of your visitors actually do what you want them to do and part with some cash. Well, if you get 1,000 visitors in, that's great. But wouldn't it be far better to get 10,000 in? Because that conversion percentage is going to stay the same, but that's a lot more people putting money in your till.
Yeah.
And that's what local SEO is all about.
There's one really quick question I want to ask, actually, off the back of something you said. You mentioned user intent there much earlier on, but it's a word that gets thrown around quite a lot, or a term that gets thrown around quite a lot. What exactly, to people who maybe are new to SEO, what exactly is user intent, and how do you go about measuring it? What are some of the strategies that you put in place to focus on user intent and to meet user intent, essentially?
Yeah, that's a great question. Certainly over the last couple of years, Google has been a lot more focused on trying to assess user intent and how that works in relation to your particular website. Because if you think about it rationally, people come into your business have a range of different reasons for actually doing that. In other words, their intent. So what is their intent? Are they looking to buy? Is it informational? Is it transactional? What do they want? Are they looking for are they an existing customer looking for support? Are they hitting your website just because they want to then be able to hit the directions button so that they can actually come and visit you? So there's lots of different reasons. And one of the things that the search engines will do when it's looking at your site is try and work out, well, that page, what intent does that fit? Does that fit somebody looking for information? Or does that fit somebody looking to actually buy something right here and now? And then Google will look at that, and it will also look at what it thinks the intent of the person who's put whatever the search term is. So they put a search term into Google, find me a bagel seller near me. Now, if they know, and particularly if you're signed in to Google, if Google has an idea that you're actually just looking for recipes, then your site that's selling probably isn't going to come up very, very high. But if Google has a fairly clear impression of your intent to go out there and buy a pack of bagels, then if your site has an e-commerce function on it or is very clearly a bricks and mortar shop, then Google goes, yeah, somebody looking to buy, there's a website looking to sell. Put them together. So what you need to think of as a business owner is having areas or content on the site that meets all those different sort of possibilities. Because don't forget, somebody looking for information today could be somebody looking to buy a week down the line or even a month down the line. And we were talking about this before, that it's not at all uncommon, and it all depends on the business and the service. Yet some things are consumable, some things are fast moving consumer items, but other sales take longer. And it goes from somebody just doing a bit of research on the industry or the product in general. Then they might find your site, so they'll do some research on you and your business. How long has it been trading? Is it reputable? Does it look like I can safely pay a deposit and it's not going to disappear into the ether? So it's a much longer process. And if we think of that traditional sales funnel, you'll often hear marketeers talking about top of funnel, middle of funnel, bottom of funnel. Yeah. And it's really, where is somebody on that sales journey? And if they're stalled or stopped at any point in that, then it's broken and something is wrong. So you need to just think about the message. Where's the message going wrong? What are you not getting over? What are you not giving that potential client? Do they need more information? Do they need a nudge? Do they need a discount? Whatever it is.
Yeah, we're going to come on to talk about the different stages of the funnel and what you can do to optimize the user experience for each of those stages. So I'm really glad you mentioned that. But obviously, you use that phrase, the shop window, a lot. I love that. I think it's a brilliant encapsulation of what SEO is all about. So the shop window concept, can you just expand a little more on what you mean by that and how local SMEs can improve their shop window? In other words, what are the key elements of a successful local SEO strategy? You're welcome to list as many suggestions as you like on this one.
Okay, right. We've got a few to go at. So the thing about local SEO is it's local. So you need to tell people where you are, and by people I mean your potential clients and also Google. So you need to make it crystal clear where you are, and part of that is claiming your local Google business profile. They keep changing the name of it. Business profile, I think, is the current official name. Most people still call it Google My Business, because that's what it was called for quite a while. But we'll come back to that in just a second. Because let's imagine that you are a brand new SME and you have your lovely new website. It's all crisp and responsive and got lots of lovely imagery in there, lots of lovely photos. And there's a thing, photos. Get good photos of your actual business. There's nothing I hate more than going and looking at a website and it's just full of bad stock imagery. I'm not saying stock is bad. It has its place, because sometimes you want a stock image of a leaking pipe. And you don't actually want to take a hacksaw to one of your own pipes underneath the kitchen sink. It gets messy, and you generally get into a spot of bother for doing it. So stock has its place, but when you see a site that is just pure stock, and usually American stock, it's very clearly somebody working on an American electrical system rather than a British electrician. Oh, lazy. Bad. You clearly don't understand what the client is actually doing, whoever the designer is. So photographs, really good. But anyway, you've got this nice new website. So what do you do with it? Because I remember when I first set up a little business many years ago, I built a website and I thought, oh, that's it, the world will beat a path to my door. Yeah, it didn't. That was a lesson hard to learn. So, just having a website sat there, you need to do a little bit more. So one of the things you can do, one of the things that the search engines really like to see is proof of your address. So where you are in the world and what you do. And the number of business websites I see that make the address hard to find. Hey guys, this is your business. You're advertising your business. Don't make it hard to find. So, down in the footer is a great place to put it. But ideally, a bit higher up than that as well, above the fold, as we call it. If you imagine an old style broadsheet newspaper, or even the more modern tabloid ones, think back to the last time you read one on the train. You fold it up and you fold it over, don't you, to make it easier to actually handle. And that bit that you're looking at is called the above the fold, because that's the bit that's in your eye line. And websites work very similarly. So if you've got to scroll down, then it's not immediately visible. So that's below the fold. That's not good. So things like your phone number and your address, ideally they should be above the fold. Now, I know sometimes that's difficult with design limitations, and the designer said, oh, it doesn't look very nice. Well, okay, no, it doesn't, but it's more effective. So, maybe sometimes, think your way around it. At least have the phone number, up top. And quite often you'll see that in a navigation header, across the page. Great place to put it. As an aside, if you're putting a phone number in, make it clickable, because an awful lot of people now are browsing from mobile phones. So make the phone number clickable, so all they've got to do is hit it, and then then they can get in touch with you. So make sure you've got your address on there. That can be, a lot of people have a separate contact us page. That's fine. Put a map on there, put a contact form on there, put a link, an email link on there, put your phone number on there, put your address on there, put local parking details, much information as you like. That's fine, that's cool. But also have that address, please, on every other single page, because you wouldn't send out flyers in the post, would you, and not tell people where your business is actually located? It's an easy win. So make sure that address is there. And then very closely allied to that, what SEO is called local citations, which is a horrible American phrase that I really don't like. But it's all about getting your address out into other places. So get some basic listings on local business directories. And there's lots out there. Do not pay for this. You can pay somebody to do it. Certainly, if somebody was coming to me as an SEO client, that would be part and parcel of what I would do. That would be one of the activities. But do not go to a directory, and if the directory says, oh yeah, put your details on here, it's only 15 quid a year. No, don't be daft. There's loads out there. There's plenty that you don't need to pay for. In SEO, there is stuff that you do need to pay for, disbursements, as you start getting higher up the tree. But not at this level. There's lots of free directories out there that you can get your business listed on. And by doing that, it gives us something called NAP consistency. NAP, very important to Google: name, address, phone. So make sure it's the same on all of them, and be really fussy about this. If your business is on Acacia Street, then decide, are you going to use ST or street, and use that right across. Google getting better, and Google says it doesn't matter, but it does. That anecdotally, in most SEOs will say, yeah, it does seem to make a difference. So because so much, of course, at Google is behind the scenes and automated, and this comes into when you claim your Google business listing, that consistency of NAP is really, really important. So get that out in some local business directories. Then go to business.google.com and claim your Google My Business listing, or your business profile, whatever name you want to give it. It is that bit that if you search for a business, Joe Bloggs and Sons Southport, or Joe Bloggs and Sons Liverpool, Joe Bloggs and Sons Birmingham, and then in the search results you get the bit up on the right hand side with the reviews, the photos, all that bit. That's all driven from the Google business profile. More to the point, it gives Google that sense of where you exist in a local sense, which is really, really important for local SEO. But also, it gives you an entry onto Google Maps. It gives you the ability to receive reviews. Really, really powerful. So get that claimed. Google might already know about your business. And it just needs you to claim it. Or it doesn't know about it, in which case you fill in all the details. Now, one of the things Google is really clamping down on at the moment, it's causing people no end of trouble, is actually verifying that this business is real. And years ago, it used to be dead easy. And businesses that operated out of a combined business centre where there's lots of businesses operating from there, or if they used a business centre as a virtual office address, as an accommodation office, as we used to call it.
Yeah.
Google hates that, because the whole thing of Google local business listings, as far as Google's concerned, is it should be for local businesses where people can actually go. Now, it doesn't have to be that you've got a showroom or premises. You can be a service area business. So if you're like a local mobile mechanic or a local mobile hairdresser, where you visit people within that service area, that's still okay. But what Google really envisaged it for is shops, pubs, restaurants, businesses where you can actually go to.
Yeah.
And they will generally verify quite easily. But for a lot of others, Google will say, oh, we don't believe you. And they will start asking for things like, we want a video. We want to see you walking from the street into your business. Oh, that can be difficult if it's a virtual office. And people have come up with all sorts of ways around this. And quite often you've got to do it several times before it just happens to hit somebody at Google that goes, yeah, I'll take that.
Yeah.
Because quite often it's being verified by people that don't know the UK. So they don't realize how buildings should look and what have you. So people have often got to walk outside to the nearest street junction so they can video the street name, walk in, and ideally past a company vehicle that's got sign writing on it, past a big sign, then into an office that's got a sign on the door, and then there's paperwork out on the desk. So it's very clearly a business environment, and the paperwork has name and address details on it that matches the business. So you've really got to quite sometimes work hard to get yourself verified, and it's difficult because there's a perfectly legitimate business I'm working with that are accommodation managers, and they live outside. Let's say they're in Birmingham. They live a little way outside Birmingham, and they run the business from an office at home. They have a virtual office in Birmingham.
Yeah.
But nowhere do they actually have somewhere that's signage that can actually relate to the name, address, phone that's on the website and is on the Google business account. Because you don't want to register a Google business account for their home office, because that's not where the actual work goes on.
No.
Trying to get that one verified is going to be difficult. And Google has clamped down on that an awful lot. Google has also clamped down on Google reviews. Now, Google reviews are a great thing for a business to have, because one of the things that Google likes is credibility. And you will have heard of this, but many viewers might not have heard of Google Eat, E-A-T. And it's one of the things that Google sort of looks for when looking at how to regard a website or a person or a post on another site, anything that's mentioning your business. And it's EAT, expertise. What is your expertise? How can you prove your expertise? Your authority. Are you an authoritative voice in your industry? What makes Google think that they should take any notice of what you say? Because do you actually know what you're talking about? And the T is trust. And trust, one of the ways of establishing trust is some nice Google reviews, because Google likes them. But lots of businesses, they really struggle with Google reviews at the moment. And I've heard of lots of business owners complaining that genuine reviews have been removed. That's because Google's doing it all through AI, and it doesn't always get it right. AI is not a panacea. It's a tool, but it's not always that accurate. And people end up with losing lots of genuine Google reviews that they've worked hard for. But that's because there's been so many people pushing with lots and lots of fake reviews over the last few years. So now the pendulum has swung a little bit too far the other way. But you're not going to get any reviews if you don't have a Google business profile, because that's where they live. And it's a really good thing if you can work with your clients to get more and better reviews. And the way to do that is to make it easy for them. And what I generally suggest is pick one or two places where you want all your reviews to go. So if you've got a Google business profile, then that's a no-brainer. You want some to go there. But then pick somewhere else where you want to sort of guide people to leave reviews, because you don't want reviews scattered all over the internet. 1 there, 2 there, 3 there, 1 over there. you want them in just one or two nice big piles, and then
Yeah.
they're nice and visible to Google, and they will work far better. So what I would say is, if you've got a Google profile, if your business suits that, then yeah, that's one place to guide people to.
Yeah.
And then maybe if you're part of the Which Trusted Trader scheme, that's another good place.
Yeah.
Free index. If you're in hospitality, then TripAdvisor, that sort of thing. But the thing to do is to try and make that easy for people. So what I would suggest is you get yourself some little business cards made up, and on that, on each side, you say, we'd really love it if you'd leave us a review here or here, and then you can create a QR code to take them straight to the review page.
Yeah.
So you're making it as easy as possible. And what you can do now, I haven't got one to hold up to show up, but you can get little NFC tags. So and you can just pop them near a smartphone, and it'll take them straight to the review page. So they don't have to navigate through. You're web savvy. You're using the web every day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, strange enough, I am. But not everybody's customers are that web savvy. So,
of course, yeah.
I do a lot of work helping startup businesses through a charity, and talking about social media and reviews and the online world and SEO and all the same. And we do quite a lot on how to get reviews, because that's incredibly powerful. It's social proof, and that's a really, really powerful way of getting getting people's confidence. So that's one of the things that's really, really good to do. Get your Google business account, and then start trying to get reviews. Accept that not every review that is left will actually get published, because many will fall foul of the overzealous spam filters that Google seems to be employing at the moment. But even if you just get one or two, that may be one or two more than your competitors. Yeah. And that's going to stand you in good stead in Google's eyes, but also in human beings' eyes as well, because then when you're actually when people are deciding whether to go to your shop or the one on the next street over, hopefully they decide, oh yeah, this one's got loads of great reviews. And don't worry if you get a bad review either. It's all about how you deal with it, because not everybody will leave a good review. They might be your competition. They might be somebody that's just impossible to please. But if you're getting a score above 4, you're doing fine, and I wouldn't worry too much about it. And the way to deal with a bad review, respond to it and dilute it. So get more reviews. But don't pay people for reviews. Don't get fake reviews. That way lies much pain. So that was, that's getting started with the Google My Business. And that's one of the real things you can do for local SEO. Be meticulous with the contact information, both on Google My Business and on these other directory sites or anywhere else that you're putting information out there. Try and be consistent with that name, address, phone. Yeah. NAP consistency, really, really important. Yeah. On the Google My Business, choose your category. You can choose a primary and a secondary category. Maybe don't choose too many secondary ones. But again, that's giving Google all the clues it needs. And sometimes, depending on what category that is, it will open up a few extra options where you can give it extra information. Yeah. If you're a restaurant, it might ask you to upload a menu. It's not going to do that if you're a mechanic. So tell it what you tell Google what you do. So any of the attributes that are in there, like disabled friendly access, pet friendly, woman-owned business, I think, is one of the attributes that they've got in there. So any of those attributes that fit your business, make sure you mark them off. There's an option in there for a description from the business. Do not be tempted just to copy and paste the main paragraph out the front page of your website. It's tempting, and we've all done it. Sometimes we've been in a rush. Oh yeah, let's just get it up. But if you can do that, giving the same information, who you are, what you do, why you do it, tell the story, and that's really important. Online, tell the story of your business at every opportunity. Stand out. People buy from people. So if you've got an interesting backstory as to why you are the world's best Volkswagen Beetle mechanic, then tell them. So put that from the business description in the Google business profile.
Yeah, I mean, if we look back at some of the points you raised there, I think the main takeaways I've got is, be authentic, be transparent, make the user experience as seamless as possible, be clear on who your ideal customer is. I really liked some of the abbreviations that you mentioned there, the NAP term, obviously EEAT, which is a massive thing, especially in light of Google's most recent helpful content update. There's some amazing points there, Duncan. I think that's absolutely fantastic. I mean, one thing that I do actually want to come back to on the point that you raised just now with the EEAT, one of the pillars of that is the expertise element. So things like content, blog posts, landing pages. Obviously, that's my bag, so I'm biased. I'm going to ask that in this podcast. I'm going to ask about that. So I just want to talk about that a bit more. So, how important do you feel that consistent content is in a successful SEO or local SEO strategy, I should say?
Yeah, over the last couple of years, we've been, every year we've been seeing, all the gurus that will that appear like mushrooms in the lawn on LinkedIn and everywhere else online. They're all saying, well, first of all, they were saying link building is dead, content is king. Yeah. Now they're saying content is dead. It's all about whatever course they're trying to sell at the moment. Excuse me. And to be honest, nothing exists in isolation. One of the things with SEO is what we call backlinks. So that's links from other parts of the internet pointing back at your site. And they all act as little votes of confidence. Some great big votes of confidence and some really small. And then there's a relevancy and there's a local SEO component to those as well. But that is one important part of SEO. But let's say that you've got fantastic backlink profile, lots of these signposts pointing at your site. But then if a human being or Google visits your site and the content is dire, what's the point? I went, right at the start, I said, it's a chain. And that right there is where that chain would break. So content is vitally important. Good content, even more so. Because we talked earlier about user intent. So what is that user intent? Are they just looking for a bit more information on what you sell? Let's say you sell lawn fertilizer. First of all, they want to know is this lawn fertilizer or is any lawn fertilizer going to do what I need and convert my scrubby bit of wasteland into centre court at Wimbledon? So that's informational. So they're looking for information on what is out there. They're not looking to buy at this stage. But looking for information. And if you meet that information requirement, where are they likely to come back to when they hit that buying phase, when they're ready to go? So you need that informational content in there, but then you also need the content that's taken them further down that sales funnel. So you're then talking about the different types of fertilizer and which ones are good for different things. And then, why they should buy this one. What's good about this one as opposed to that one? What are the different methods of application? So you're giving all that information, and that is very much about content. And yet content really is king. I saw a website a number of years ago when I was putting some slides together, and it was fairly local to me. I think it's long since gone because I never found it again. And I thought, I think I was giving a talk to wedding photographers. So I looked for a local photographer's website and I found one. And this will make every SEOer curl up in horror. But down at the bottom of the page, it had white text on a white background. Ooh, purely search engine fodder. Because the search engines will index that, because the search engine, just read the code of the page. They don't necessarily look at the color. Search engines are a lot more have a lot more expertise and technology behind them now, and they will spot that, and that is a quick way to get yourself banned from Google or put in the sandbox, or as you might call it, the naughty step. But it had its white text on a white background, and I thought, ooh, 1995 is calling. But then I looked at what that text said, and it was hideous. So it said something along the lines of, Joe Bloggs is a wedding photographer based in Crosby. Crosby is part of Liverpool. Joe Bloggs is a Liverpool wedding photographer based in Crosby. Liverpool's best wedding photographer is based in Crosby, Liverpool. And it was like a paragraph of that sort of arrant nonsense. And all I could think of, well, even if that was successful and brought in a human being to the website, are they actually going to buy anything from that photographer, or very quickly hit the back button and find somebody with a box brownie instead?
Yeah.
Because that was just just hideous. And every so often I still see people falling into those sort of old traps, because there's a lot of misinformation out there on the web. There's a lot of SEO advice out there that's never worked. There's a lot of SEO advice that did work, but things have moved on. The search engines don't like it, because it's a constant cat and mouse game between SEO and the search engines.
Yeah.
And it's a strange sort of reciprocal relationship. And good SEO works well with search engines, because if what you're doing is just helping a site ethically and organically raise its visibility, help get the message over, search engines have got no problem with that, because they want to return good results. If you're trying to fool the search engines, that's what they don't like. And that's what the various updates, and everybody thinks, oh yeah, there's a Google update, oh maybe once or twice a year. No, there's about 450 a year. And a lot of them are really small targeted updates, and sometimes they get reversed. They'll just try them and see what happens. They did a big update a few years back because payday loan companies were getting out of hand, and they were all over the web. They were appearing where they shouldn't. So Google pretty much turned that industry off overnight, because they released an update that just absolutely clobbered any of the payday loan companies. And Google will do this from time to time. They will tweak their algorithm if they think that something is getting unbalanced. Or if they think you're an actual spammer, they will do a manual intervention when you really do not want to go there. If you've got a site that's had a manual intervention, if you're signed up to the right places in Google, you'll actually know about it. You'll see, and then you need to work really hard to undo whatever it is you've done that they don't like, and woe betide you if you don't realize that you've done that. Google will go after very large organizations if they have to, and there have been some very large organizations who've been responsible for selling links and not declaring them as links, for example, and that caused a large newspaper title to suddenly disappear off the first page of Google for quite some time a few years ago, as I was gleefully told by the editor-in-chief of a smaller title, who couldn't stop herself laughing. So there's lots going on in the background. But if you do SEO the right way and the ethical way, then you don't need to worry about Google updates. Sure, it'll vary a bit, because SEO is a moving feast. That can be incredibly frustrating at times, and it's also part of the fun of working in the industry. But trying to work in the Google environment and the online environment in terms of getting sites ranking, well, it's not like taking a straight walk from A to B. It's more like trying to carry 3 full pints in your hand across a child's trampoline while your friend's over-enthusiastic German Shepherd is bouncing up and down on it. It is constantly moving, and you need to be agile. But if you do stuff the right way, although it's going to move, you're not going to get absolutely tanked, hopefully, by a Google update. And that's some of the important stuff. You mentioned content, and is content still important? And that comes back again for local SEO, back to that Google profile thing we were talking about 5 minutes ago.
Yeah.
Because part of that is you can create little posts that go on Google. They disappear after a period of time, but those Google posts, they're great for getting little snippets out, and then pointing people to a particular page, or through to your buying page, or an offer you've got on, or anything like that. And if you can do those Google posts, ideally weekly, then that's a great way, because you're sending a message to Google, hey, I'm involved.
Yeah.
We haven't just built this website and left it to wither on the vine. We're actively curating our online presence. So if you do that, and maybe add photos into the Google My Business as well on a regular basis, if your business merits that sort of activity. But anything you can do on that sort of regular basis, Google loves to see that you're touching your online business on a regular basis, rather than just letting it wither.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I'm I'm going to go right back to that example that you gave of the business owner in Crosby, and I feel like that's very much so. There are the people who don't work in SEO or content won't know this, but there are two types of SEO. There's black hat SEO and white hat SEO. That seems to me to fall very much into the black hat SEO category. In fact, I've got a story on that that's similar to that anyway. So I used to work for a photography insurance company, and I was trying to get backlinks for the company. We'd got into a few big titles. I can't remember the names of them off the top of my head, but you'd know them. I want to say one of them was Digital Something Journal, Digital Camera Journal, Digital Camera World. I can't remember, but it was quite a big title anyway. But there was another one in Australia that I reached out to. You know, it was quite a big title, if I remember rightly. Anyway, we were trying to get some, I was trying to get us links, but we had an asset that I was going to share with him, you know, so that he could put together an editorial piece for his readers. And we already had the press release written up. He then said, yeah, sure, I'll do that. But in exchange, I want a link on the homepage of your website. And I thought, a link to a news website on the homepage of an insurance provider. And I said, well, no, I can't do that. We're already giving you something. We're giving you the content that will be of, you know, value to your audience. And he said, basically, it was a really blunt email. He just said, here's the thing, Neil, unless you can put us on your homepage, I'm not interested. And he said, but then I said, okay, we'll leave it then. Then he came back to me and said, why can't you just put it on your website and have it in orange text or something? Because we had an orange banner. He's like, why can't you just put it in orange text and have it blend into the banner so no one will see it? And I thought, what? So you want a link to your website completely out of context with the rest of our homepage that just has your business name on it and offers nothing really to the reader apart from just, here's the website.
Yeah, and that actually offers nothing to either party, because in Google will just see that as a reciprocal link. You know, those days of having a page on your website that was your links page full of links to other sites, and quite often it was a you scratch my back and I'll scratch yours type exercise. Well, Google just looks at it and goes, hey, don't be daft. That's a you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours exercise. And then to ask you to do it in a black hat way, which is, you know, putting text against a background of the same color, so it's invisible to a human being but visible to a search engine. Google just goes, you're trying to pull the wool over my eyes. You're trying to manipulate me. I don't like that. And that will do you no good whatsoever. But so, you know, that was actually taking something that could have been quite useful to both parties and absolutely destroying it.
Yeah.
Just to come back to what you said about white hat and black hat, there may be some of your viewers that don't understand that distinction. And it goes back to the days, you know, when I was a kid, you know, not you, because you know, you've grown up with 3D holograms and all this stuff, but, you know, I've got grey in the beard. So when I was a kid and used to get sat in front of the TV, there was only 3 channels in those days, and you used to watch an old cowboy and Indian film in black and white. And the convention was that you could tell who the good guys and the bad guys were from the colour of their hats.
I never
The good
knew
guys
that.
wore the white hats and the bad guys wore the black hats. And that's where this term in SEO has come from. And black hat SEO is sometimes stuff that's really, really effective, but usually only for a very short time, because then Google catches up with you and goes, oh, hang on, don't like that. But that's, excuse me, that's often used by the more dodgy websites, what we call churn and burn websites. So they're selling dodgy pharmaceuticals, porn, gambling, all that side of stuff. The stuff that Google itself actually calls a bad neighborhood. So you don't want a link back from a bad neighborhood, because you are the average of the people that you hang out with, both in real life and online. So if you're getting a lot of backlinks off dodgy sites, it doesn't impact you too well. There are people out there selling negative SEO, where they will promise to spam the world with your competitor's website so it drags their reputation down. Nah, it doesn't work. Google is smart enough to actually just discount those links, so it doesn't drag them down. It just does no good. But there's people out there charging thousands to do that. Excuse me. So so you need to be careful of, you know, of that sort of black hat activity, because it will ultimately get you penalized, but it often works in the short term. So when you get those spam emails promising to get you to the top of Google for 50 quid, that's what they do. They just use automated tools to spam you everywhere. You get a very quick blip in rankings, but literally it only lasts, a week or so sometimes. And it decays very, very quickly, because Google very quickly goes, hang on, these links are not relevant at all. So you actually end up potentially worse off, because if Google thinks you're really trying to manipulate it, it'll put you in the sandbox, in the naughty step, for a period of time, and you will not get any traffic or reduced traffic, or you'll go from whatever page you're on to page 98, where very little lives. So you've got to be careful of that, and that relevancy of links is really quite important. Those backlinks that we talked about, those votes of confidence, they don't have to be from sites that are directly relevant to you. There's more, if you were an engineering, if you were a metal fabrication factory, then it'd be great if you could get a link back from the metal wholesalers, for example. That's relevant. So that's a nice, valuable link, because there's relevancy there, and Google goes, oh yeah, I can see the link there. That's really good, and that reinforces the industry that you're in. But in local SEO terms, it is also acceptable to get a link from the sandwich shop next door, because even though there's no relevancy between metal fabrication and your tuna mayo baguette, hopefully. What it is doing is, if you are really keen on the local SEO elements, it's sending a local signal. So it's saying, the sandwich shop might have a page on saying, these are some of our fantastic local customers, and of course, they want people to know that they supply the big factory next door. So, it's not relevant in terms of industry, but it's relevant in terms of geography. And one of the issues with local SEO is trying to manage that, because you want lots of local signals, but you don't want so many local signals that are irrelevant that it then brings down in industry side of the search.
Yeah, well, relevancy, as we know, is obviously huge in that sense. And I never knew that the term black and white SEO originated from the cowboy films. That's amazing. So I know that now. You learn something new every day. I think we've covered most of these, but I just want to round this bit off. I mean, what are some of the other common mistakes that you've seen local SMEs make when it comes to SEO? Is there anything that we haven't covered, or anything you'd like to expand on a bit more?
Yeah, there's when you think of SEO as a whole, well, be that national, international, or hyper local, there's three legs to it. So there's technical SEO. So that's, are there any technical faults with the website itself? Is it really slow to load? Does it serve different versions according to whether you're a human being or a Google spider? That's a massive no-no. That will get you banned. Or is it just a little bit slow and clunky? There are things to fix regardless. One often to look out for is the size of the images. Quite often people will upload, if let's say they're using a content management system, WordPress, Drupal, any of those, they'll often upload a massive image because that's what they've got, and then it's resized on the page. But the problem is that the browser that's viewing that web page has to download that massive image that might be a 2 meg image. So it's really slow to download. Even with broadband, it's slow to download. When that image, if it was just resized, it might only be 80K. So, and a lot quicker. So, images that are incorrectly sized, that's a massive one that people miss out on. So you got that on page element, the technical SEO. Then we look at on page. So that's all the stuff on the website itself. So content primarily. And then there's off page, which is the links and the discussion referencing the site coming back from other places. So on page, look at your content. Is it stilted? Is it well written? A lot of SMEs, they're run by people who are excellent at what they do, and they are fantastic. I couldn't build a boat. I couldn't build a house. I'm not even a particularly good brain surgeon. But so I leave that stuff to the people that know what they're doing.
Yeah.
But if you're a person that doesn't know the difference between there, and there, if you're a person that says, I would have, instead of I would have,
Yeah.
and if you're a person that thinks contractions are only confined to the labour ward, then maybe you need to get somebody in to rewrite the content. And there are people that do such things, are there not, Neil?
Yes, well, I love that. Our contract. What was it you said? If you're one of those people who think that contractions are limited to the labour ward, I think that's fantastic. That's amazing. Where do you get all this stuff from? You just like your mind has all these amazing.
I'm going to copyright that. So if I see you using that, I'll actually demand royalties. But it's true, isn't it? You see so many websites that they're written by people that really know their stuff. But if you met them at a networking event or at a party, you'd probably be backing away slowly, quite quickly, because they can't get it over well. They can't, as a friend of mine says, don't sell the sausage, sell the sizzle. What are the benefits? What are the what are the really important bits that somebody gets from dealing with you? And there's a Liverpool marketeer. Does sales training all over the world. A guy called Andy Bounds. Look him up on YouTube. Absolutely fantastic guy. And one of the things he talks about is the afters. It's what you leave the customer with, because people actually aren't that interested in buying a fire extinguisher. What they're interested in is that they are buying avoidance of risk and that they are buying the ability to put out a fire. They don't care whether that's water, CO2 or anything else. That really doesn't factor in their thinking too much. They just want the afters, what you leave them with. And that's very true of the website content and copy as well. People need to have that message. What is it that your business does? What is it that they should come to you for? So that's one of the things that often needs fixing. Other quick fixes: make sure you've got alt text on the images, make sure you've got good title tags and meta descriptions on the pages. And if you don't know what those things are, that's fine, because you should do what your business does best and do that. And then you come to somebody like me, somebody like Neil, and we will look after all the SEO stuff.
Yeah. I absolutely love that phrase. Don't sell the sausage, sell the sizzle. You're selling the outcome that something's going to get you, not what it actually is. So many companies will go into this soliloquy about, we do this, this, and this, and this, and this, and we are a dynamic, disruptive company. Really, no one cares about that. They just care about what you can do for them. And I know of Andy. Obviously, I see him on LinkedIn all the time. He's very popular. So I'll probably clip up that bit that you just said there and share that on LinkedIn, because I think that will be really important to people. You talked about things like image compression. I use a tool called Tiny PNG for that. Obviously, I don't know what you or other people use, but that's what I use. Alt text is absolutely huge. You mentioned optimizing for mobile search. In fact, I want to ask about that, because that's just that seems to come up all the time when people talk about SEO, is optimizing for mobile. So if there's anything you haven't covered already in regards to that, what else should people know about mobile optimization? Why is mobile optimization so important? And what are some of the best practices that local businesses should follow in that area?
Yeah, certainly there's nobody that should be developing a modern website that isn't fully aware of the need to optimize for different device screen sizes. Because the whole point is, if you've got an old-fashioned website that's sort of fixed width and all the rest of it, it doesn't display very well on a tablet or on a phone. And sometimes it's unavoidable because of the content, but that's very, very rare. And you find yourself pinching and zooming and scrolling and swiping, and it doesn't make for a good user experience. And Google hates it when you haven't got a good user experience. So you really need to develop a site that will automatically detect the size of the screen it's being viewed on, and it will amend itself to suit. It will alter things. It will juggle things around. And quite often, a website will look completely different on a mobile than it does on a desktop. And that can be infuriating to people designing the sites. But it's an essential part, because depending on the site, depends on how many of your viewers might be looking at it on a smart device. If your business is very business to business, then maybe there's a good chance that 60, 70, 80% of your views might come from a desktop. So you think, right, let's concentrate on the desktop layout and this, that, and the other. But it's still going to be some people viewing it on the mobile.
Yeah.
But if your business is business to consumer, then it may be that a lot of your views are coming from people on the bus, and they're just idly searching whilst they're on the bus waiting to get to the next stop. In which point, if your site isn't mobile friendly and easy to read, it's not going to go down well. And Google was really pushing this a couple of years ago, and it is important. It is still important because it's part of that usability side of things. But there's way over 200 different factors that Google uses to determine where your site is going to appear in those search rankings. And some of them are important factors, some of them are quite small. Things like, do you have the SSL certificate, for example? Really useful. It's a ranking factor, but a relatively small one these days.
Yeah.
Mobile responsiveness, yeah, that's a factor. It's not as massive as some, but it's fairly important. Speed of the site can be really important, and image size is one of the things that can impact that. Not the only thing. There's lots of other stuff as well, and there's tools at Google that you can use to get an idea of just how Google is perceiving your site, and are there any massive gotchas in there. But yeah, if you've got an old website that's fixed size and clunky, then that should really, it's probably time to think of an overhaul. And if you've got a brand new site that doesn't display well on a mobile phone, unless that's a conscious and deliberate design decision, then you need to be having some harsh words, excuse me, having some harsh words with whoever designed it, because that really is an essential part of design and layout these days.
I've never worked with a client before where the vast majority of their searches happen on desktop. When you go on Google Search Console or any of these tools and you look at what percentage of your traffic is mobile, I mean, I don't know what it's like from your experience, but for me, it's usually around 80% of people. It does depend very much on the business. I understand that, obviously, because I'm looking at it through the prism of primarily business to consumer, but I feel like most websites will be accessed via a mobile search. So,
yeah, I have seen business to business sites where that's sort of the inverse. But yeah, predominantly, if there's any sort of consumer interaction, then mobile search generally dominates it. And it's not just mobiles that you need to think about; it's tablets as well, because an awful lot of people will search for stuff just casually when they're on the sofa of an evening and their partner's watching East Coriander and the adverts come on. So you pick up your tablet and you think, oh yeah, I'll just look up XYZ. So it needs to be navigable on a tablet of screen that size, desktop that size, and a mobile that size. And that can be actually quite hard to achieve, and it's probably the bane of many designers' lives. But that's we need to be able to reach out to where our likely clients are going to be, whether they're other businesses or consumers. They are all individuals. They are all people. So you need to work out where they are. And I don't think we can go into it today, but something to look at in general is about where your target market or markets hang out, both on and offline. Marketing avatars, marketing personas is a fascinating area of research, and that's as applicable to online marketing as it is to offline marketing. And in the offline world, it can help you make that decision as to whether you put flyers under the windscreen wipers of the cars at Waitrose or at Aldi, because it might be a different demographic depending on who you're trying to target. And the same is very true online. Where do you want to be seen? Where do you want to hang out online? Because it's not just about the search engines, as I alluded to right the way back at the start. It's also about joining in the discussions online, not being spammy, but maybe being able to add value. And that's where good content comes in as well, because if there's a question that's often being asked, and you can put a resource on your site that answers that question without being salesy, then you can ethically direct people to that. So you can join in all sorts of conversations on social media, on online forums, all sorts of different places, and say, oh yeah, there's lots of information on that. Here's a link to a site that's got some on, and because you're not sending people to a sales page, you're not really being spammy. And it's a fine line, but you need to be adding value, and that's a really important way of doing it.
I like FAQ schema as well. I don't know if we've mentioned that already, but FAQ schema is a really big thing, especially on the SERPs. Where I'm talking in all the, so basically search engine results pages for anyone who doesn't know that abbreviation. But I find that so helpful when I have a question. And if a company has, obviously you'll have the meta title, the meta description, but if you then have maybe a couple of accordions within the schema, or even just one that answers the question really quickly. I was quite cynical about schema at first, because I thought that if you answered someone's question within the SERP, where's the incentive for them to click through? But actually the opposite was true. And the more I looked into it, I found that you were building that trust with the reader. They were going, wow, that was a straight answer to my question. It covered everything I wanted to know. I trust this brand inherently more. And then it did lead to more click-through rates and more subsequent sales.
Yeah, because that's helping the EAT. It's helping the credibility. It's helping to demonstrate that expertise and that authority that you've got in that industry. And yeah, I was the same. I really didn't like schema when it first came out. It was just this is a tedious job to do. But it has its place. And FAQ is a really valuable place to put it. As an aside on that, I was reading some research recently. An awful lot of content on the actual web page, on an FAQ page, whether it's called FAQ or not, because there's often different ways of putting it. Quite often, the designer will put the different questions in a series of accordions. So for anybody who doesn't know, you've got the actual question almost in a box. You click the box, and the box unfolds and has the answer there. Looks visually very nice and very appealing. There is a school of thought that says Google indexes the page better and has a better opinion of it if it's not accordionized. So if it's just question answer, question answer, question answer in a series of paragraphs, not as visually appealing, but maybe better for search. And that's sometimes one of those tight ropes that we have to walk. And it's not always clear as to which is the better way. The jury is somewhat out. That said, I have a client page that has some accordion FAQs on, so I'm going to be changing those and just see if that makes any difference. But the trouble is, at the same time, I will also be updating the schema. So is it the change to one or the change to the other that makes the impact, be that positive or negative? And sometimes that's the hard thing to work out.
I'm getting very, very niche here, so I'm going to keep it short. But I think it would be prudent to not for you, because I'm sure you're doing this already, but for anyone watching this who might want to know, well, how can I assess which is more effective? Perhaps it would be heat maps or recordings via a tool like Hotjar or Microsoft Clarity. I don't know if you've got much experience of using them, but I guess in general, really, not just in respect of FFAQs specifically, although that is what we're talking about. I find heat maps and recordings really useful. I have heard that they slow the site down, but I don't know how much you know about that or what you can tell me there.
The more stuff that you have running on a page, the more scripts you've got in the background, the larger the CSS is, everything, it all slows it down. So you want as least extra overhead running as possible, but at the same time, if that overhead is adding something valuable, then there's a trade-off there. If you're still getting reasonable speed scores from the Google page speed tool, then I'd say go with it. What you can also try on things like that, if you don't want to have a heat map running or anything like that, there are plugins, particularly if you're using a content management system like WordPress, where there's plugins available to do almost anything. You can get plugins that will help you do split testing or A/B testing of two different versions of a page. Now, I would not recommend that anybody do that for too long, because what you're doing is you're effectively serving two different versions of a page to Google. Don't do it to too many pages on your site at once either. Otherwise, Google's going to potentially get the hump, thinking that you're trying to mask pages from it, and that's a big no-no. But if you've got two different versions, you can do some split testing and see what if one page gives you a higher conversion rate than another. So really useful if that's down at the bottom of the funnel, and you can, it can be as simple as testing. Well, does a green button sell more than a red button? And there has been a lot of work done on that in the past. So yes, you can do that, but don't do it for too long. And it's also helpful if you've got quite a lot of traffic as well, because otherwise, if you're doing A/B testing, but you're only getting 100 visits a week, well, that variation, is that just natural noise variation, or is it down to the different versions that you're running? So if you've got 10,000 visitors, it's a lot easier to see that sort of change.
Yeah. Well, we're on to the final question now. So by now we know how local SMEs can obviously boost their local search rankings, what they should avoid. What metrics and tools can they use to measure the success of their efforts?
It all depends how deeply they want to get into it. But if you're looking at actual results of marketing in general, in the simplest sense, is your phone ringing? Are you getting emails? Are you getting the sales? And it's really good. Train your staff as well. Have a piece of paper by every phone. And so every inquiry that comes in, be that by telephone, somebody walking in, or an actual order, ask them, how did you find out about us? It's a simple question. And I've known businesses large and small, and nearly every business I talk to overlooks it. And it's the simplest question going that will give you the biggest amount of information. So just do that, and then just tie them all together. And so you see, well, where are people coming from? Moving on from that, in your site, make sure you've got some analytics on your website so you can see how many people are visiting, how long they stay for, ideally where they're coming from, how they're finding you. There's what used to be called Google Webmaster Tools, that I think was a much better name, now called Search Console. And that gives you a lot of behind the scenes information. It will tell you the sort of things that you're appearing in those SERPs for, those search results pages. So what the actual search was that people did, what did they type into Google that resulted in your business appearing in that search listing, even if they then didn't click on you. It will also show you separately the ones that resulted in people actually clicking on a link to go through to your site. So it's about getting that information. Where are people coming from? How are they staying? Under the old analytics system, there was a much easier to find metric called the bounce rate. And if you imagine your website as being a trampoline, a bounce was when somebody arrived on your website and literally bounced straight back out. And that wasn't good if that was high, because that's telling Google, oh, that wasn't a good search result. They didn't find what they were looking for. So as a result, Google would make it much less likely that they would show your result in a search for that particular query. And sometimes that's fine, because it could be that it was a misnomer. It could be that you're selling Jaguar cars rather than providing a zoo facility for exotic felines. So sometimes that gives Google the useful information. Sometimes that was less helpful. And if you had a high bounce rate, sometimes depending on the industry you're in, one of the things you would work on is trying to improve the message on your page so that your bounce rate improves, so that people stay on your site. And it's all about the message on that page that they arrive on. Ooh, we're back to content, we're back to copy, we're back to relevancy. And it's also worth thinking that people don't always have to arrive on a website on the home page.
Yeah.
Quite often people will arrive on a page deep within the site, because that's the page that's answering their question. And that's really, really powerful. Deep links. So if you create a link to a website, it doesn't have to be to the home page. Create it to a deeper page, one that's answering a particular question. And then that's when you start getting what we really like to see in SEO, which is not just the mass keywords, the search terms. So if you were searching for mortgage broker, well, that's such a generic search. You're going to get all sorts. Most of it probably not that relevant. What you really want, I would argue, is what we call the long tail. So it's those keywords that are things like, I need a mortgage broker who who can work with somebody who's got 7 county court judgments and has been bankrupt twice, based in Manchester. So, it's incredibly specific. But if you rank for that, then there might not be a huge search volume, but of the searches that go on, because you're going to rank so well and be so ultra relevant, the chances are you're then going to get the inquiry.
Right.
And then it's up to you whether you can actually place a mortgage for somebody with 7 CCJs and 2 bankruptcies.
Now we'll leave the experts to figure that one out. Yeah, no, that's great. Well, Duncan, by now, I think everybody watching this will have the knowledge they need to convert their digital wasteland into the centre court of Wimbledon. So thank you so much for coming on and providing your insights. It's been amazing. Where can people find you if they want to connect or find out more?
Very easily. If they're in Liverpool, then hunt out the various coffee shops. I am a caffeine-fueled SEOer. But if you just do a search for the curiously named the Duncan Reid Consultancy, that will find me on various different platforms. But searching for that will find me. Do not expect, curiously, to find a website for me because I don't need one. Funny that, isn't it?
Yeah.
I do SEO and I don't have a website. And that is because I prefer talking to people. It's all about people. So if I had more inquiries coming in, I couldn't cope with them. I wouldn't want them. The quality of work would suffer. So I am fussy these days as to who I work with. I like to work with interesting businesses, and I like to build that rapport first before seeing if we're a good fit. So, but if you search for the Duncan Reid Consultancy, you will find me on Twitter. You'll find me on LinkedIn. You'll find me Facebook. All the usual sort of places.
Okay. Well, it's been fantastic, Duncan. Let's hope the Russians weren't listening. And thank you once again for coming onto the podcast.
As ever, it's been an absolute pleasure.